I'm Bree Luck, and you are listening to the Pause to Go podcast, where we explore the process of turning life's transitions into stellar transformations. You can expect interviews with experts, straight talk with remarkable humans, and conversations about making the most of every phase of life. Because when we approach life's stickiest spots with curiosity, support, and a little bit of inspiration, anything is possible. So whether you're on your way to work or settling in with your favorite beverage, together we can pause to go. As a solopreneur, I really like the flexibility to work from pretty much anywhere, so I'm happy to head down to Code-Based Co-working, where I can enjoy the company of others while I tackle my to-do list. Also, they have a state-of-the-art, consumer-friendly podcasting studio that is frankly my home away from home. So head over to Code-Based Co-working, check it out, and when you do, tell them that Bree sent you. I'm just going to get right into it with this. I brought in Lauren Cabrera, who was my daughter's 6th grade science teacher, to help me describe time through the lens of physics. And so what you're going to hear is our conversation where I just wanted to make sure that I didn't totally mess it up. So enjoy Unpacking the Arrow of Time and why I think science is astonishing. I'm doing a really deep dive this season in my podcast into all things time. And I wanted to start with what is time. So for the past 2 months, I've been reading and I've loved it, right? I've been totally nerding out, but I'm not a scientist. I'm not a teacher. And I don't even know if I have this right. I don't know if I have it right.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if I'll have it right either. But...
So anyway, the idea is that I'm going to go through my little podcast lecture.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop at points and be like, does that sound right? And then we're going to talk through it.
Perfect.
I've been reading Sean Carroll's books. I've been reading Carlo Rovelli. He's an Italian, he's super sexy. I love nerds. He is an Italian physicist, maybe, or philosopher.
They're kind of they all lump in together.
I know. For today, I just wanted to have a great teacher on to tell me where it makes sense and doesn't. Okay. Now I'm going to actually introduce you. So today I have my friend, Dr. Lauren Cabrera on. Lauren, you just got your PhD, yeah?
I did yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yes.
And your PhD is in education?
It's in educational psychology. So it's what motivates students. How do they learn? How do they regulate themselves during learning?
Oh my gosh, I could talk to you forever about this stuff. Dr. Cabrera was also my daughter Camden's 7th grade, right? It was 7th grade.
6th grade.
I think 6th grade, her 6th grade science teacher. And let me tell you, you lit a fire in my kid's brain. I mean, she's always been a curious, engaged student, but you opened up a whole world to her. And made her feel safe to love science.
Yes. The benefit of having her in 6th grade was I also then got to work with her for the next 2 years in after school clubs. So it's just been a gift to get to know her, see her grow into a young woman and get to know you more.
So the episode that dropped today about this is sort of my introduction to the episode that we are recording right now. And it was basically about how afraid I am to explore time from the perspective of physics, because I'm not a physicist.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not either.
And I would say I'm not a scientist in any way. And so I thought, who is a scientist that I could bring on to look at this from a real bird's eye perspective, right? We're not going to try to go deeper than either of us feels comfortable going with this. But I wanted somebody to hold my hand And also tell me if I get a B plus on this assignment. That's what I'm going for. It's
we'll
a B
work
plus.
for passing. We'll work for passing.
Okay. So physicists, that is the right word, right?
Yeah,
physicists.
Yes.
Physicists. I mean, it's a really funny word. Like it's like syzygy.
Yes.
So physicists probably understand more about time than any of the rest of us do. Right. I mean, because they have made such a study of time and space and matter.
Yes.
And as I understand it, the fundamental laws, we're not getting into quantum physics, the fundamental laws of physics don't show any kind of directionality in time.
No.
So you and I see time as like passing or flowing, because our experience of time as normal human beings who are not physicists is that we feel a directionality, right? From past to present to future.
Yes.
But to a physicist, time looks a little bit different.
Yes. Because humans will put things in perspective of themselves. And so they'll think of their lived experiences and put time in terms of that. Whereas, especially theoretical physicists will think of the whole system outside of the human perspective.
We can never really get outside of the human perspective. We're stuck in our brains, unfortunately. But even to try to do that, I think it's the most admirable thing.
It is.
So I'm going to zoom out a little bit and we're going to talk about planets. We know that planets in the solar system travel around the sun. And we can choose any moment of time. If we're looking at it from the perspective of physics, we can choose any moment of time. And with the right tools, we can pretty much figure out in general where those planets are. That's their position, right? And how fast they are traveling. And that's velocity. Yay, Dr. Burke from my physics class.
There you go.
And so with this information, physicists use equations, that's math, to pretty much figure out where those planets will be like next month, and also where they could have been 5,000 years ago.
Yes.
And you can use the fundamental laws of physics, and those fundamental laws of physics cover gravity, electromagnetism, weak nuclear force, and strong nuclear force. Like that's like, I don't even get that.
Yeah, agreed.
But they use all those things to estimate backwards or forwards in time, and they have some pretty good accuracy with that. Right?
Yes. And have for thousands of years, which is remarkable. Yeah, ancient astronomers and the accuracy that they had in all of those predictions that you were just talking about, fascinating. Yes.
So for thousands of years, they've been able to describe any point in time, whether it's 1,000,000 years in the past or 100 years in the future, or the day that you get your PhD from Virginia Commonwealth University. Yes. But this is like at the planetary level, right? This isn't like what's going to happen to Lauren Cabrera in 1998.
No.
Were you alive in 1998?
I was.
Okay.
I was 9.
So the point is that there is no greater value. And I think value is really important, right? Because there's no greater value placed on the past or the future in terms of data.
No.
At the cosmic level, there's just this basic symmetry of knowledge of the past and the future.
Yep.
And we also have this kind of symmetry. So that's way out in space, right? But we also have that at the microscopic level, the subatomic level, right? It's so freaking cool.
I know.
So the concept is that the properties of tiny little particles of atoms and molecules remain unchanged after being subjected to a variety of symmetry transformations, right? Or those are operations.
Yeah.
So like at the big level and the tiny level, it looks the same.
Yes. Even down to the mathematical equations used to predict their movement and stuff, they're very similar, which is fascinating.
So cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question then, because I can't even, like, it's like telling me that I have $10 million in my bank account. I cannot fathom that much money. And that's sort of how I feel about this. Right?
Yes. Understand completely.
So like one of the examples that I think I heard that I want to just make sure that I get it is like, basically, if I look at it at sort of a human scale level, if I throw a ball in the air, I can trace its course in the air. But then if I did it backwards, if I went backwards in time, it would trace the same course.
Yes.
And that's time symmetry, basically. Okay, cool. So here's where it gets a little funky because in real life, it doesn't feel like that.
It does not.
And we don't experience it a lot of times at the physical level, like an egg. If I have an egg in my hand and I throw the egg in the air and chart its course, it's going to be broken. Like I can't put the egg back together.
Yes.
And that is how we experience time, right? There's an egg, there's a broken egg with the yolk on the ground. Can't put it back. That's the difference between past and present.
Yeah. Cause and effect. So this is called asymmetry of time, this experience of time, right? And it's a one-way direction from past to present to future. And then there's this, I read that there's the dude who came up with this term of the arrow of time. Like, oh, I've never heard
arrow of time. Sir Arthur Eddington.
Okay.
In 1927.
Wow.
I mean, I know.
It's surprising it took that long to come up with the term.
I think it's really probably that it was attributed to him.
Yes. Because I imagine that this construct, like this idea of it, has been around for a long time.
Yeah, and he's a sir, right? So he's probably some privileged white dude who had access to something getting published, and so he got it. He got his name affiliated with Arrow of Time.
There you go.
That's the way it works. Most of the people who do this are privileged white dudes, so it's really great.
Yeah, who happened to be working with the people that were actually doing it. But anyway.
Oh, thank you. Can you just say that again?
Who happened to be working with the people that were actually doing the work.
I just want to take a moment to send appreciation to all the people who are unrecognized for the incredible work that they have done.
Yes.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up.
Of course.
Okay, so the arrow of time is what gives us an impression of time passing.
Yes.
Right. Now, we, dreamers and teachers and dishwashers and parents are acutely aware of time passing. And what's more, because of our experience of time, we have this bias. And the bias is super interesting.
Yes.
The bias is that we can use our memory and, in scientific terms, artifacts, right? Or our records, which we know are not always true, as you just pointed out.
Yes.
But we use those to have a pretty good idea of some of the things that happened in the past on sort of we'll say the human scale.
Yes.
Right. And then we have our current experience that we think is accurate, but as someone who has studied psychology, we know that it's relative, right? There's a lot of relative.
Yeah, it's all up to your interpretation and your perceptions of the world and your worldview. And yes, the way that we see the world around us drastically changes based off of the person interpreting it.
Right. The future, though, is like a complete crapshoot.
Yeah.
Yes. We actually really don't know.
No.
So I predicted this morning that I would pick up my daughter from school this afternoon. That's why I set our appointment for now. And I predict that I'll make it down to Georgia to visit my family for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And I feel pretty certain that I'm going to get a bill from the IRS at some point right? Like those are things that I can predict.
Yes.
But today my husband decided to pick up my kid. So that prediction didn't come true.
You didn't have to. Yeah.
No. And then of course my flight to Georgia could be canceled.
Yeah.
I could not make it down there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe the IRS will decide to stop taxing people who are butchering the laws of physics on their podcasts. But in general, we have this bias that what happened in the past is done, what happens in the present is real, and what happens in the future is subject to change, but that we also have some agency over what will impact the future.
We do, yes. Yes. Like you have more agency over, your tomorrow's schedule, potentially over the hurricane that could then disrupt flights.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about that bias.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets pretty controversial. We're going to get into entropy a little bit.
Sure.
So right now, in the popular world of physics, the widely held belief seems to be that most of the reason that we see time as having a forward direction ultimately comes down to thermodynamics.
Yeah.
And so thermodynamics is the science of heat and its relation with mechanical energy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did you know that there's a zeroth law of thermodynamics? What the heck is a zeroth? That feels like a mistake.
They made up the first three and then found one that was preceding it and didn't have a number before one except zero.
It's like the Star Wars movies. It's like
Exactly.
going back to...
Yes.
Anyway, we're not going to go through all the laws of thermodynamics. But the second law of thermodynamics is the one that we're going to talk about today because it hinges on the concept of entropy. So I think of entropy as like my 12-year-old car needing to go to the mechanic more often, right?
Yes.
But in physics, we get a little different view.
Mm-hmm.
And the second law of thermodynamics says that as one goes forward in time, the net entropy, which is defined as the degree of disorder of any isolated or closed system, will always increase.
Yes.
Always feels like a really strong word. Like it hurts me to hear that word.
Always is. I agree. And especially like in science terms, but the reason they can use that term is because they bound the system as closed.
Okay.
So closed systems are when you just focus on the one thing, like your one car needing to go to the shop more. But then if you think about it as an open system, then that changes the whole thing completely.
So if we have a closed system, is the universe a closed system? Like, is that when we're looking at it this way? Is the universe?
So typically people will like bound a closed system to help then describe or make sense of things that are hard to make sense of. If you make the closed system too big, though, that no longer has that purpose.
Okay.
That, like, to me, that's more of an open system when you see things more interacting. So I guess on a planetary level, yes, it could definitely be like said as a closed system because you're dealing with like then everything else around it. But
on an experiential level, we look at smaller, like for us to be able to wrap our brains around it, those of us who can't imagine $10 million in our bank account, it helps to think of a smaller closed system.
Right.
Great. Totally understand that. So thank you for describing a closed system there. I'm going to get the technical definition too. It's a physical system that doesn't exchange any matter with its surroundings and isn't subject to any net force whose source is external to the system. I like to have both. So thank you for that practical explanation of it. Okay. So we have that. Now this part is actually really important in terms of time. Because there's this guy, Ludwig Banzmann, he's Austrian, and he came up with a statistical explanation for this second law of thermodynamics. And his statistical explanation is basically a way of counting how many ways there are to rearrange the constituents of a system so that it macroscopically looks the same. So essentially, as time progresses, I am talking about this actually in terms of a solar system level here.
Okay.
As time progresses, we are moving to more and more possibilities of recombining all the different parts of our realm.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I find this whole thing of entropy being recombining just so comforting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because it helps. Like, so if you think about your egg example,
yeah,
there are so many things that could then happen with it. Like the possibility of it going back to that original egg form just spontaneously is so close to zero because like entropy is just like increased so much.
Yes. I also think of aging. Right?
Yes.
I'm not going to go back to being 19-year-old Bree. Not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But if I'm thinking of it as like, I'm just rearranging, like everything is just rearranging.
Yeah.
Then I don't know. It just feels like there are more possibilities for me as I move forward, right? Just like on an emotional level, it's kind of nice.
It is. It is. When you're thinking about time, like really honing in on that agency that you were talking about, that helps make you feel more in control.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even if not in control, to find greater curiosity within that. And greater curiosity for me leads to greater peace. That's just how I function. That's my weirdo brain. Anyway, back to the universe.
Yes.
So how does this relate to time? Well, what these physicists say is that, and this is Bantsman and also particularly Sean Carroll, who I talked about in the last podcast, basically 14 billion years ago, there was the Big Bang. And for whatever reason, that was a low entropic event, that there was very low entropy in that. And this really got me caught up for about 3 days because I was like, why? Why?
Yeah, because we think of it as so powerful and such a big start, but then to have it categorized as low entropy.
I know.
Yeah.
It sort of goes against our natural logic.
Yes.
Or at least our semantics around that.
Yes. Yeah. Logical flow then says if as you like increasing time increases entropy. So if you decrease time, it should decrease entropy. That can make sense. Yeah. There you go.
I think you just got it. And I might have to listen to it again to get it.
That's okay.
So anyway, ever since the Big Bang, which we'll assume that the physicists know what they're talking about. It was a low entropic event. And since then, we've been progressing to a period of high entropy. And right now, we are in what's called a period of complexity.
Okay.
We don't really need science to figure that out, though.
We'll get your phone for a hot second. Know that.
So that is basically the explanation of the arrow of time through physics. I want to try to explain this in one other way. And this is why I really want you here too. So on Earth, we're going back to like our system of Earth. We get our energy mostly from the sun in the form of visible light, on which all life as we know it depends. Do we agree on that?
Yep.
Okay. The cool thing is that we on Earth, all of us radiate that same amount of energy back out.
Yeah.
But we do it at about 1/20th of a photon of energy from the sun. So we're radiating the same amount out that we get in, but it comes in like one photon gets divided up into 20 whatevers to radiate back out in the form of infrared. Is that right? Infrared rays?
Probably. Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, we radiate it back out.
Yeah. Because the sun is really giving off the whole electromagnetic spectrum. We see the visible light, but there's like more waves that we can't see coming from the sun too.
Great. So the sun's rays. So let's correct that it's not just visible light. It's sunlight. It's light from the sun. All light from the sun.
It's electromagnetic waves is that.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So this is essentially entropy in action, right? Like we're seeing it right there because the sun sends one photon of light our way. And then on Earth, we have plants that photosynthesize it, right? Yep. That's breaking it up. We have animals that take in the oxygen, eat the plants, right? Mm-hmm. We have humans who eat the plants and the animals. Yeah. And then we dance and cry and make babies and
get sunburn.
Get sunburn.
Skin reacting to the electromagnetic waves. Clouds, the atmosphere will absorb it.
Yeah.
You get like the northern lights because of that. You can see them.
It's so cool. Those are the coolest thing. Yeah. But basically in doing all that we do and sitting here and talking to you, we are taking the sun's energy and then radiating it back out. We're reorganizing it, restructuring it, and then radiating it back out into the solar system.
Yes. Yes.
So entropy is not just why you need to put a roof on your head every 20 years. It's the stuff of light and art and freaking snowflakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think that's the coolest thing.
It is. That's why I got into science to begin with, is like just figuring out like why things happen the way they do and patterns in the natural world and things like, I find it fascinating.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, I think that that's like the basic explanation of time.
Yeah.
From the perspective of physics from my very limited vantage point.
But it is more than most people will ever think about time. And
not anymore. Now everybody's going to think about time.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking your time to be with me.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. I can't wait to hear all about this series.
It's a fun one. So that was the brief explanation of time through the lens of physics. Big thanks to Lauren Cabrera for coming in to help me out with that. And I just want to give a big note of appreciation to all the great teachers out there. Putting this episode together really gave me a greater appreciation of all that you do every day. And next time, we will talk about why there are 24 hours in a day. It'll be good. Stay curious, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to the Pause to Go podcast. If you got something out of this episode, let us know. Share it with a friend, join our Facebook group, and subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts if you loved it. If not, no worries. We want you to tell it like it is, and we'd love to have your input. If you want to know more about what I'm up to, you can follow me on Instagram at The Lovely Unbecoming or at my website, thelovelyunbecoming.com. Stay curious, y'all.